Welcome, my friends. How are we doing? Today, there is nothing quite like being sick and really sick, like intensely sick, and that questioning your current existence. We had this like 12-hour bug that hit us. You guys don't care about the details per se, but boy, there are moments during that time that you're like, oh, I'm not sure there's a level of worse combinations of pain. See the pain, the weakness, the trembling, the sweats. Ugh, yuck. But we got through it and we're doing better. I want to talk a little bit about training around a sickness. Some things you want to consider, think about. I trained within 24 hours, but I'll talk about what I mean by that. So when it comes to training with a sickness, I think there's like 4 levels. So level 0, which isn't really a level, is basically I can't do anything at all. So just prioritize your health and wellness and so on. Level 1 is basically I just want to get outside and do something. Maybe not outside, I just want to move. The sake of movement makes me feel better. That's level 1. Like I am actually moving because it's therapeutic. Level 2 is, that's what I did yesterday. Can I lift? Can I not lift? I don't know. It's basically you're testing the waters. And when you do something like this, you just want to go enough. You don't want to go so hard you're going to push yourself past the limit. So I kind of do this to get myself ready for the next day because I'm like, look, I feel kind of fine. But I know I haven't had as many meals, liquids, I'm dehydrated, carbs are low. And so I always ask myself, could I play in a basketball game tonight if I was still in college? Yeah, absolutely. I probably could have. Would I go to practice and play? Probably not. Would I do a light workout in the morning, or would I do a workout with a team like in the weights? No, I'd skip it. Okay, if that's the case, then I'm basically just trying to physically move to get myself ready to do something the next day. So a little bit of therapeutic aspect because moving makes me feel good. At the same time, the lifting portion is just kind of get my body moving. I'm not trying to actually adapt. Level 3 is when you're actually trying to adapt to something. You maybe just come off of a sickness, you're feeling pretty good, you maybe don't have the fuel, the stamina, and all this stuff to actually do a full workout. So you do a workout, but you cut the volume down. Maybe you increase the rest times. You reduce the metabolic loading. You try to avoid things that go extremely anaerobic. You try to avoid things that turn the system on really, really close to maximal. So if you think about it in terms of percentage effort, yeah, you might try 100% on certain movements. You might try to run fast and jump high, but you're not going to do that and coincide at the same time, have that coincide with challenging your recovery time. So you just kind of isolate certain stimuli. And then level 4 is you're totally ready to go. And this is just based on me and how I think about this stuff. And the reason why I bring this up is because I've worked and do work with athletes who are kind of obsessive. One day is never going to make you better, and one day it can set you back. But sometimes athletes just want to work out no matter what, and they'll push past something. And knowing that, and they want to work out, and they pay you to train them, well, you have to have some navigational beacon to at least guide the process of your training, and that's how I think of my levels of activity based on coming off of a sickness. Very easy to use. You can manipulate it for yourself, how you want to do it, whatever, so on and so forth. Same kind of thing with an injury, by the way, because you can think about it in terms of like, I always ask myself, when I ask myself or my athletes, would I play tonight in a basketball game based on how it hurts? Would I play in practice? Would I play open gym? Would I play pickup? Would I do a workout? Based on those aches and pains, we kind of guide the training process, because at times training is not very perfect and it is difficult and so on and so forth. So yesterday I basically, as you guys have seen in the video on the side right here, I have been and had been doing basically a barbell complex. So basically 6 different exercises, one to the next, really lightweight. Take me through joint and range of motion and moving. Did some full body movements, did a little bit of high speed movements just to see how I'd feel and respond. I'm not trying to actually adapt to my training. I'm just trying to see how the engine's running. And it actually made me feel much better, and I'm happy I did it. I almost broke a sweat. But it's one of those things where being sick, man, you question your reality a little bit. And what a time, by the way, that we can have those kind of illnesses, and what a privilege and blessing that think about this. If you're traveling across the U.S. on horseback or whatever in times 150 years ago, and you got that illness, it might be a much more unfavorable outcome. Versus nowadays, I'm able to be in the warm house, I'm able to have fluids and liquids and go to the restroom when I need to. I have support from my wife, and I make it through it just fine. But it's wild to think about, contextually at a time, maybe, because right now it's still snowing, and it's not snowing, snow on the ground. If I was living outside right now, I don't know if I'd make it through. Versus it's something I'm able to work out with 24 hours later. What a privilege we have and certain opportunities for these things. Privilege to be in a situation where I have the opportunity for what was once probably fatal to not be very fatal at all. Side note, talk about this. I didn't bring it up last time, but I wanted to. This is the idea of pivot, by the way, getting stronger while building speed versus getting strong and then building speed. So this is something that really bothers me in our training world, is that we're so picky at times, but then generally acceptance of times of massive blanket statements. Like there's a classic belief that in traditional periodization and training, you should build your muscles big and strong, go through like a hypertrophy phase where you're going through low and moderate tempo reps, maybe something that's like 12, maybe 8 to 12 reps, 15 reps, 4 sets, classic hypertrophy work, right? Constant tension type thing, where you're building the cross-sectional area of the muscle, and then you maybe do some more power work, and then finally, once you have a bigger muscle and you have some power, then you try and convert it into speed, which is a bizarre concept to me, because what you can do, and it's so silly to think this doesn't work, is you can build your cross-sectional area of the muscles. You can make your muscles stronger while you are training to still be fast and move with intent. There is no reason why lifting a barbell fast and lifting a trap bar fast and being explosive running and jumping isn't going to also build your cross-sectional area of the muscle. That's so silly to think. And so often when I consider this problem, let's pretend we have a situation where you have 6 months to train. And in this situation, I can do 2 months of hypertrophy, 2 months of power / strength, and the last bit, speed. Or I could do a hybrid of the whole thing. Maybe I'm doing predominantly speed and power work with some strength mixed in for 6 months straight. Which one is going to have a better outcome? And let me give you a real life example. I worked with an athlete this off season. They had a short off season. I gave them a bunch of high speed work. High speed lifting, high speed power, strength, high speed. You want to call it strength? I'm not sure if you can even call it that. They went and they did their testing numbers for their team, and they performed just as well as they had in the previous time we trained in a third of the time. So a smaller window with the same results. So I got excellent results in a third of the time. The question is why? Well, here's the question. The question is, if I were to then extrapolate that over 2 more months, let me take a step back. Often people would argue, and this is a weird argument because I don't want to skip past this argument because this kind of sets the base for my next argument, that, you should have done a strength block, you should have done a power block, and then you should speed work. And then if you just do speed work, you're going to make progress. That progress is going to stall maybe. And then you're going to need to do whatever, some other stuff. It's just like this weird jumbly gobbly goop of justification. Doesn't really make any sense. The reality is the person got better or got better during the window of the off season, and 1/3 of the time with less work, total volume done, and they reach their results. So who is going to argue with that? Oh, but you didn't do a strength block, a power. I don't care. Stop worrying about stuff that isn't directly going to be correlated to someone's success. How about you measure their outputs? So here's an example. Imagine if I have an athlete, and we're going back to this. This is why it sets the argument in the 1/3 time in the 6 months example I gave a second ago. We have 6 months, and I train that person for 2 months strength and power, 2 months speed and whatever, and the last 2 months hypertrophy, 2 months strength, power, last bit of it speed, and they put on, 6 inches in their vertical. But during the time period, during the hypertrophy and strength phase, they hadn't really put on any vertical, and then they put on 6 inches only during that last phase. How do I know if it wasn't just what I did in that last phase that mattered? Do I just have to then, retrospectively justify my strength and power phase because now they got stronger? But traditionally, people don't really have the guts, for lack of better words, to just do the speed phase. So I took that speed phase and I stuck it first, and I said, we're going to do that first because that's 2 months or even less than that. Our short window is all we got. And what do you know? He got his progress that he had from the previous training cycle before in 1/3 of the time. So maybe this athlete in the 6-month example could have gotten those 6 inches right off the bat. And then maybe they could have squeezed out another 2 or 4, maybe 3 inches during the other time period of the other 4 months they had, doing some sort of undulating model, up and down speed and strength, and mixing in the proportionality of the emphasis. And then they could get more results. And so it's so silly because what I'm trying to get at is so often we just justify our results because we make up some explanation through which makes us feel good. And so getting stronger and then trying to add speed, I think, is kind of foolhardy. You can get stronger while you're building speed and power. You can do higher volume power work. Believe it or not, you can. You can do higher volume plyometric work, like extensive plyos. All of these are increasing the total volume, time under tension, loading of the muscle system to develop some hypertrophy. Just the same way that if you are a professional cyclist, a sprint cyclist, those guys have massive quads. They will sprint on their cycle, and they will build massive quads from sprinting on their bicycle. Doing the sport can make you more jacked and strong. Look at rock climbers. There's a reason why your body adapts. To think that somehow we don't adapt to the stimulus, and we have to do these other stimuli like strength and speed, strength and power work in isolation to even make any progress, is something that makes little to no sense to me, and I've yet to see it truly pan out. Because when people do stuff like that, like I said, they'll do 2 months of strength and 2 months whatever, and then the last phase they do the speed work, and they see all their progress during the speed work. And then they justify their entire speed block from the previous 2 months. But if the previous 2 months or 4 months is what made you faster, then why didn't you get faster during those 4 months? Why did you have to have a speed block in order to get faster? What if you just did the speed block? And it's just such an illogical justification of things. You see this all the time in our society, let alone strength and conditioning. We love to explain things, but explaining things doesn't mean you know why things work. People used to explain that the earth was the center of the universe and the sun would travel around it. They would explain it in many different ways. Doesn't mean it was right, by the way, because the sun was at the center and the earth would travel around the sun, not vice versa, Galileo. And so you could find ways to explain stuff, but your explanation doesn't mean it is correct. And that's one of the biggest issues we have in society as a whole. It's I could sit here and make up explanations to 1,000 different things that make it sound accurate. I've actually thought about one time making a fake account to just almost as a satire account to do that. We had funny bits like it was a fear-based training. And one of the things was you had to get really scared and amped up before you trained, because what happened is it heightened your central nervous system. When someone scares you, you go into fight or flight response, and we want to optimize the fight response so we have maximal hormonal output. So when you do an exercise, you're in a hyper-engaged state, and we do that by scaring people. I explain why in theory it could work, but realistically it probably wouldn't work. But I can explain to you why it sounds kind of cool. Or I can explain to you 1,000 different ways why doing this exercise or whatever this, certain proposal of something is going to be the best method possible, but there isn't any sound justification. Maybe that's why I like physics, because I've heard people argue online, this part of the foot is what made that person run fast. No. It might have played a role, probably, but no one's foot has ever gotten a spaceship to the moon. Force does that, and force comes from some very specific areas. And it's the rate of force production, it's the magnitude of force production, and only once we start to unwind that big yarn ball of complicated, of complexity of how movement actually occurs at the most micro level, the base principles, such as physics, then we can begin to mesh it all together with some of the anecdotal stuff and observational stuff to at least give our explanations a little more credibility beyond just making stuff up. So I'm going to end the rant there today because I don't want to get too carried away with it. I appreciate you guys listening as always. I hope you enjoy. Remember, don't just explain things, but try and understand things. Don't be afraid to get strong and fast at the same time. Build strength while you build your speed. Seems to be a good option. And when you're sick, you don't have to train. But if you want to train, maybe those kind of 4 levels of training can be a good way to guide you. So I appreciate you guys as always. Take care and hope